Hey, good morning. Mike Iverson here. Today's the 13th of December, and it's the feast day of one of my favorite saints from the early church, St. Lucy. St. Lucy was a virgin martyr. She was born in Syracuse on the island of Sicily in 283 AD, and she was the daughter of very devout parents. And because she was in such a strong Christian family, Lucy was raised to be very devout herself. She was also very beautiful. And she was, as she was growing up and through her tweens and into her teenage years, she was revered, in fact, for her beauty. And during her short life, she made a vow to God that she would be his and she would remain his by remaining a virgin in a time before nuns and religious sisters were a thing. So she was kind of a forerunner for nuns, for female religious life. And this was all during the Diocletian persecutions. If you know anything about Diocletian, if you don't know about Diocletian, do a quick Google search. He was renowned for his intense hatred of Christians. Again, this was 283, so this was before Christianity was legal. It was still in a time where Christianity was hated and seen as this subversive terrorist group, basically, to the Roman emperor. So Lucy and her family were very much not in favor, and because she was so beautiful, she was a prize to these wealthy and influential Roman men in Syracuse, and they kept proposing to her, and this outraged the men when they would be told no, because Lucy had already committed herself to God and she wasn't going to marry a pagan anyway, even if she would have married, right? So this outraged all these influential, wealthy suitors that Lucy wouldn't marry them. So they then appealed to the governor in Syracuse and asked him to force her to marry when she turned 21. So the governor did that. The governor said, "Hey, Lucy, you're beautiful. It's an absolute waste of our Roman resources to not have you marry. So you're going to have to marry these guys." And she refused. So the first thing that they tried to do, they said, "Well, if you're not going to marry any of these men, then we're going to sell you into a life of prostitution." So in front of the governor, men came and they tried to pull her out to take her into that highly undesirable life. But they realized as they tried to move her that she wouldn't budge. So they kept getting more and more men and trying to pull her from the court floor, and she wouldn't move. Then they went so far as to get a team of oxen and tied the oxen to Lucy and tried to pull her from the floor of the courthouse, and she still wouldn't move. So then the governor was furious. He said, "All right, well, if we can't get her out of here, let's burn her alive right here." So they built a pyre around her, they lit it, and Lucy wouldn't burn. She just stood there prayerfully giving witness to God. Then, according to one version of this story, after trying to sell her into prostitution and burn her alive, one of the suitors, one of the would-be suitors, came up to her and said, "Well, Lucy, you're just so beautiful. It's such a waste, and your eyes in particular. Your eyes are so beautiful. Wouldn't you please consider marrying one of us?" And Lucy's response was, "If my eyes are so beautiful," she reached up, she pulled her own eyes out and handed them to the man and said, "If my eyes are so beautiful, here you go. Take my eyes." They obviously, so that didn't go well. Then eventually, though, they were able to kill her. They stabbed her to death with swords. They cut her up pretty bad. But when her body was prepared for burial, it was discovered that her eyes had been miraculously restored. And the reason that Lucy is one of my absolute favorite saints is because her sacrifice and her commitment to God demonstrates a couple of things. The first thing that her sacrifice demonstrates is that no man can own me. No man owned St. Lucy, and in fact, neither did God. God gave her the free will to choose him. The second thing that Lucy's life teaches me is that it's better to die than to let yourself be owned. Because God made us free, and nothing is more important than God and our relationship with him and what he wants for our lives. And if Lucy had given in, all of this would have been compromised. God gave us free will, and he wants our love for him to be perfect. And love cannot be perfect if it's forced. Love cannot be perfect if it requires a team of oxen to cause someone to love you. God is a gentleman, and he never forces himself on anyone. And Lucy's story shows us how true love should be. It should be chosen, it should be freely given, and then it's reciprocated by the other party. God loved Lucy so much that he restored her to her full human self after death, after he had embraced her in his arms as a martyr for his church. So, St. Lucy, pray for us. Thanks a lot for watching.